I made a video nearly 2 years ago about Avowed. Not much was known then, but I think we were all under the impression that this was going to be Obsidian's Skyrim, but set in a Pillars of Eternity universe. With the gameplay reveal at the Xbox Showcase this year, we now know that that definitely was not true. Let me know your thoughts on the Avowed gameplay reveal in the comments down below. But the biggest point of difference here to clarify, I think, is that Avowed was originally revealed in 2020, and it's been 3 years since then, and development definitely changes in 3 years' time. And I think our original expectations of what Avowed was going to be is actually what Avowed was originally supposed to be. Talking to PC Gamer, Obsidian's CEO, did tell them that Avowed's original pitch was a sprawling open world like Skyrim, but the studio shifted to a more focused scope to emphasize Obsidian's strengths. So we weren't necessarily wrong in thinking that this was going to be a big Skyrim epic. It just seems like that has changed throughout its development cycle. And in the Xbox Extended Showcase, they talked about that size even further, reiterating that it's roughly comparable to something like Knights of the Old Republic 2 or The Outer Worlds. Now, that is an interesting thing to mention. So it's a series of interconnected open zones. It's not open world, and Outer Worlds is probably the closest modern comparison. For those that haven't played Outer Worlds, which obviously I highly recommend that you do, it's actually a really good game. The way that works is, even though it's set on multiple planets or different cities and things that you go to, they're very contained areas. They're large enough that there's a bit of exploration there and things to do, but they're small spaces that are heavily story focused, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, I'm curious to know what you guys think about this shift, as I feel like we were originally sold something different to what the game is going to be, but you know, that's game development, right? If you reveal something in 2020 with a completely CGI trailer before development has really kicked off, things are probably going to change, and it seems like that's what's happened. But Obsidian are amazing storytellers. Like, the Outer Worlds definitely has some shortcomings, whether that be visually or even some of the combat wise, it's a little weak in that regard, but the story and the choice and consequences were incredible, and that is really Obsidian's strengths, and I'm glad that they're focusing on that for Avowed. Some of the companions as well in Outer Worlds are like exceptionally written, like, you know, make me think of Pavadi's storyline, incredibly well written, and companions are going to be a big part of Avowed, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. But I'm glad that they are focusing on their strengths, though just personally, as someone who loves open world games, I am a little disappointed that it won't be, but Outer Worlds was still a good game, so it's not a bad thing. It's just, I feel differently about the game than I think I originally was before we actually got that reveal. Avowed is set in Aora, which is the Pillars of Eternity lands in the universe, but it's going to be set in a specific region here called the Living Lands. Pillars 1, for reference, was set in Eastern Reach, and Pillars 2 was set in the Deadfire Archipelago, so it's a completely different area to Aora and the Pillars of Eternity universe. Now, the Living Lands has very diverse landscapes, so we see that in the gameplay reveal trailer. We sort of like traditional, you know, fantasy setting areas, as well as some typically not so traditional areas that we do see. Now, in Avowed, you won't be playing as a Watcher like you were in Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2, a Watcher being a gifted individual capable of perceiving the souls of other people and interacting with them. You will have a unique soul connection that is not specifically mentioned what that is, it's just sort of like teased in the extended showcase, but the story setup here is that you are being sent as an envoy of the Ada Empire to the Living Lands for some reason, but part of that reason is to investigate the plague that is happening in these Living Lands. Now, while we are playing an established role, it is mentioned in the PC Gamer article that you are an Imperial envoy, but your personality, appearance, philosophy, and vibe you bring to that role is up to you as the player you decide to be. Now, while the Pillars of Eternity universe does have many races, I think there's like 6, I probably should have looked that up before I started recording. In this, you will only be able to play as either a human or an elf. So some of the more exotic races that are in the Pillars universe, like one of the companions, which we're about to talk about, who is an Amal, you won't be able to play as them. So you're going to be a little bit restricted in that way. And again, it's, you know, leading into that thing that this isn't their Skyrim, you know, it is more of a contained experience like the Outer Worlds. So speaking of that companions will play a big role, and the first companion we did get revealed in the trailer is Kay, who is a coastal Amal. Now, they're mentioned to be a soldier, sort of a mercenary type, and Avowed's gameplay director has mentioned that companions aren't really optional here. In some games, they're optionally recruitable, but in Avowed, they're deeply tied to the story and tied to your party. We really wanted to create this sense that you're in this big wild frontier frontier. You're going on this adventure of discovery, and you have this small but tight-knit crew with you. And it is mentioned that you'll be able to bring 2 of those companions with you at a time, and each will have their own combat speciality. So there's definitely going to be some of that CRPG roots there, right? Like in the Pillars games, you have sort of a party that comes with you, and in Avowed, you'll have 2 companions that'll come with you. That'll be integral to the story, and you'll obviously be able to interact with them. I suspect that they'll have sort of those elements from Outer Worlds, like the exceptional writing as well as character development as you get to know these companions. I am looking forward to seeing more of that and understanding their history as well as the things that they come from. I hope that, we've obviously seen that Kai is an Amau. I hope the other races are in the game as well as being companions to you, but it is a shame we can't play as them ourselves. Now, while these details are all interesting, gameplay is the core of like any game, right? And with Avowed, it has been mentioned that because of the dev shift away from the open world, there is much more of a stronger focus on combat. So it's probably easy to look at, these trailer and say it's just Skyrim. And I totally see that for sure, but it does seem to be a significant advancement on like the basics of Skyrim, especially being Skyrim's pretty old nowadays. But we see the player like kick enemies or use spells that like directly manipulate the enemies. They even have animations as they interact with them, like sucking them into the ground, or even like the flintlock pistols, which is a unique part of like the Pillars universe as well. But combat has been a key focus. Patel cited a lot of time has been spent tuning the feel of swinging a sword versus a mace versus an axe to make combat feel right. And that's really interesting because in Skyrim, all the weapons have the same like swing and like attack animations. You just kind of like stand there and hack at each other and nothing really changes. But if each of these weapons have unique feels and animations, there's definitely something interesting that you can pull from that, even without talking about, getting into the magic systems and sort of being able to dual wield pistols or magic. I really want to know if I can dual wield like a sword and a flintlock pistol. That would be super cool to have some sort of like a swashbuckling dude that, can dual wield pistols and swords or something. I'm very interested to see how deep that system goes, and I really want to know more about it. But they have said that, in the Xbox Extended Showcase, that they wanted to focus on that depth and breadth of the combat and playstyle from Pillars of Eternity and translate it into a first-person experience, including the range of options from the pistols to swords and shields and magic abilities and the likes. And so I hope we either get our hands on it or get to see more of that coming up, maybe at the Game Awards or something, or even the next like developer direct that Xbox does. I hope we get to see more of that. But there is also a few other details I just wanted to pull out from the PC Gamer article that didn't really fit anywhere, but I just wanted to pull them out here because I think they're worth knowing. So it is purely single player, there's no co-op. The world is lightly systemic, think water and lighting interactions, but not the old bucket on the head trick. You'll have the 2 companions, which we mentioned. There are several ability trees to progress through, and you won't be locked to a particular class or play style. You will level up, but the focus is on unlocking abilities rather than putting points into stats to grow stronger. I like that system. I love systems that are based on abilities rather than just like stat progression. It's so much more interesting when you're actually learning new things than just like increasing a number by 5%. But I am super interested to know what you think of the new information that we got from Avowed. Is it what you thought it was going to be? Is it different? Do you care that it's different? Are you more or less interested? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is Norza, and I hope you have a great day.